Hello and welcome back to Kim Reads as we continue with Very Funny Elizabeth. Chapter 3, Miss Price. The very next morning, Miss Priscilla began instructing Annabel and Elizabeth in the ways aristocratic ladies behaved in England. When the sisters came to breakfast, Miss Priscilla sang out, "Dorabelle and little one, you are wearing such sweet dresses. I had worn that style long ago when it was fashionable. It makes me feel quite young to see that style again. But of course, in England, a lady in the highest circle of society must always look fashionable and up to date, not dowdy as a milkmaid." Annabel nodded wide-eyed. She accepted Miss Priscilla's instructive comment as if it were a precious jewel of wisdom. But Elizabeth saw that the comment was nothing more than a criticism disguised as a compliment. When the girls sat at the table, Miss Priscilla smiled and said, "I'm amused by your hair, Clarabelle, and yours too, little one. You look like dear little curly-haired lambs. Of course, ladies in England must never be seen with even one hair out of place." Annabel had taken the extra trouble that morning to fix her hair in an elaborate manner in order to impress Miss Priscilla. Now she sheepishly pulled her cap down to cover her curls and nudged Elizabeth to do the same. Elizabeth ignored her and served herself some breakfast ham. As the girls ate, Miss Priscilla laughed a tinkling, mirthless laugh. "Isabel and little one, I do admire your happy appetites. You eat a tremendous amount. Of course, ladies in England are delicate and consider impolite to eat so heartily." Annabel's cheeks pinked in the color of the ham on her pan. She put her fork down quickly. Elizabeth continued chewing. She was beginning to regret having to be included in Miss Priscilla's aristocratic lady lessons. And their very first breakfast together was not even over. As the days went on, Elizabeth more and more regretted being included. She grew tired of being told, day after day, how things were done in England. She grew tired of being with Miss Priscilla from morning till night, too. They hardly ever saw Lord Harry. Whenever he blundered into a room where Miss Priscilla was seated with Annabel and Elizabeth, he'd stop short. He blushed shyly at Annabel, took one look at his sister's impatient eyes and irritated curls, and skittered away as quickly as possible. Elizabeth understood why. Miss Priscilla's sharp-pointed eyes found faults in him, too, which he pointed out with sharp-pointed comments. So Lord Harry spent most of his days following Mr. Cole around like a faithful dog or meandering around Williamsburg. One day, Elizabeth saw him standing with men looking at the horses in the neighbor's paddock. Except at tea and dinner, where he never said a word because his sisters always spoke for him, Elizabeth and Annabel saw Lord Harry very rarely. At last, an afternoon came when Elizabeth could slip away. Annabel and Miss Priscilla were going to the milliner's shop to choose a new stomacher for Annabel's best dress. Annabel, who was very particular about her appearance, stood at the mirror by the front door and adjusted the bow on her hat over and over again. Just when she saw finally satisfied, Miss Priscilla looked at her bow, shivered with distaste, and retied it for her. "You mustn't look like a country mouse when you're in public, Annabel," she said. "Even in such an insignificant town as this. I pray you will try to look your best in the evening of the engagement party. Your mother and I have invited people from only the best circle of society, and it would not do to be embarrassed in front of them." She sighed and added hauntingly, "Of course, thanks to those dreadful hot-headed patriots, there are not many loyalists left here in Williamsburg." She frowned, tilted Annabel's hat, and then said, "Come along now." As soon as Miss Priscilla and Annabel were out of the door, Elizabeth rushed to Felicity's house and told her woes to her friend. Miss Priscilla's idea of instructing Annabel and me is to tell us everything we do is wrong, which seems about everything we do, Elizabeth said to Felicity. According to her, Annabel and I don't dress, stand, walk, talk, sit, eat, drink, or breathe the way aristocratic ladies do in England. All I can do is say that those ladies in England must be miserable. There's so many rules to follow. I am very glad that I am not moving to England." "I am glad too," said Felicity, smiling at her friend. "Does Annabel really want to marry Lord Harry?" "It seems so," said Elizabeth. though still doesn't really know him at all. They are never allowed to be alone together. If Lord Harry ever does happen to run into Annabelle and me, Annabelle smiles at him, he blushes shyly at her, and then he scurries off. When the whole family is gathered for tea and dinner, he only ever says one thing. Elizabeth pretending to be Lord Harry and said in a deep voice, "Righto." The girls giggled. "At least he sounds agreeable," said Felicity. "Do you think he's nice?" "Yes, I do," Elizabeth said, "and I think you would too, Felicity. He's rather tongue-tied, clumsy bumbler when his sister is around. That's just because she makes him very nervous. He seems to be happiest out of doors, and he's very at ease with dogs and horses. Sort of like a horse himself. And I certainly would like him," said Felicity, who adores horses. "I do like Lord Harry," said Elizabeth, "but I think I'd rather think more highly of him. He didn't let his sister bully him as he does." She said, "Miss Priscilla is very tiresome. I dread the time I spend with her. And Annabelle makes it worse. First she puts on her hoity-toity airs trying to impress Miss Priscilla. Then when Miss Priscilla does criticize her, Annabelle just accepts it. I wish I knew a way to shake Annabelle awake and poke and prod to see how ridiculous she's acting. And how silly she is to let Miss Pris bully her too." Miss Felicity smiled shyly. "Oh," she said, "I think you do know a way to poke and prod Annabelle." Elizabeth grinned gleefully, because underneath the table, Felicity's toes were tapping hers. Tap, tap, tap. Elizabeth did her best, conscientiously, very morning at breakfast for the next 3 days. Elizabeth teased Annabelle with the tried and true tricks that she and Felicity had invented to torment Annabelle even more. Elizabeth acted like prim proper little Miss Pris herself. The first day, Elizabeth put salt in Annabelle's tea instead of sugar, which made Elizabeth turn very red in the face and rush from the room coughing and sputtering. "Gracious, Sarah Bell," Miss Priscilla called after Annabelle. "Ladies in England never gulp their tea, and they never run out of the room without making a proper curtsy." "Tis, tis," Elizabeth said. She sipped her tea slowly and carefully. On the second day, Elizabeth secretly slipped a little bit of an icicle down Annabelle's dress, which made Annabelle whoop, leap up from her chair, and run from squealing. "Gracious, Cora Bell," Miss Priscilla called out after her. "Ladies in England never whoop, and as I said before, they never run out of the room without making a proper curtsy." Elizabeth shook her head sadly and silently. She sat straight and still in her chair. On the third day, Aunt Elizabeth hid a live spider in among Annabelle's slices of toast, which made Annabelle shriek in terror. She pushed her plate away with such force that it knocked over a bowl of prunes and gooey juice and spilled the prunes and juice all over the table. Then Annabelle ran from the room howling. "Gracious, Flora Bell," Miss Priscilla called out after her. "Ladies in England never knock things over, and I must tell you again that a lady never runs out of the room without making a proper curtsy." Elizabeth sighed quietly and lifted her toast with her dainty fingers. The fourth day was the day of the party to announce Annabelle's engagement to Lord Harry. Elizabeth had planned to try the teetery tower of tarts trick again, but she said not to it at the last minute just because her mother and father had joined them at breakfast, which was most unusual, and it turns out dreadful for Elizabeth. I have to give you the good news, Elizabeth," said Mr. Cole. "Miss Priscilla has given the most gracious offer to take you along when she, Lord Harry, and Annabelle sail for England. Your mother and I have agreed. Miss Priscilla will announce this initial good news the engagement party tonight." Elizabeth gasped. She was stunned and speechless. Her heart beat fast. Her face flushed red, and her jaw fell open. She was going to England too? It was the most horrifying idea she had ever heard. "I can see that you are as amazed at the great generosity of Miss Priscilla's invitation as we were," Mr. Cole went on. "You understand that the move to England will be very advantageous for you. You will be lifted into a higher level of society than we enjoyed here in Virginia, which means you will be better prospects for marriage eventually, and while better education, training to be a lady." In desperation, Elizabeth turned to her mother, but before she could say a word, Mrs. Cole said gently, "Your father and I have been trying to find a way to remove both you and Annabelle from the dangerous political situation in the colonies. Elizabeth, my love, the future grows more and more uncertain for us loyalists in Virginia every day." "Yes, indeed," Miss Priscilla cut in. "We must take you away from these wild, uncivilized patriot hotheads." Mrs. Cole smiled sadly at Elizabeth. "We will be broken-hearted to part with you, dear Elizabeth," she said, "but we are thinking of your future and of your safety, and it will comfort us knowing that you and Annabelle are together." Good manners prevented Elizabeth from shouting, "No, I won't go." She swallowed hard and then said in a shaky voice, "Mama, Father, with all due respect, I beg you to believe me when I say I do not want to go." Annabelle added, "And I don't want her to either. She's a minx and a mischief maker." But no one paid any attention to Annabelle. "Ha ha ha!" Miss Priscilla laughed gratingly. "We all do know that you want to come to England, little one. Did you not beg to be included in my instructions about how to behave in England? And for the past 3 days at breakfast, your manners have been impeccable. You will fit into the aristocratic society perfectly. You will not have gulped your tea, whooped, or spilled prunes. You will never run out of the room without making a proper curtsy, which, as you know, your sister has done over and over again, despite my constant reminders." "But I made Annabelle do those things," said Elizabeth. "I played tricks on her." Annabelle rolled to face Miss Purcell. "That is what I've been trying to tell you," she said with exasperation. But Miss Priscilla just laughed again. "It is kind of you to try to excuse your sister's mistakes, little one. But you need not, and don't worry. I'll keep a close eye on her in England so that she won't make such errors here. I'll keep an eye on you, too." She fixed Elizabeth with a steely glare and added, "As long as you and sister follow my guidance, all will be well." Life in England with Miss Pris sounded like prison to Elizabeth. "Miss Priscilla, Mama, Father," Elizabeth pleaded, "please believe me, I'm not proper enough to go to England. I truly did trick Annabelle into acting so ruthlessly." She did, ranted Annabelle. "Elizabeth," Mrs. Cole began. But Miss Priscilla interrupted. You couldn't possibly be clever enough to plan such pranks, little one," she said condescendingly. "Oh, how you do amuse me. We'll have great fun in England. You are very funny, Elizabeth." "No!" exclaimed Felicity when Elizabeth told her the news. The two friends were together at Elizabeth's house. It was just a few hours before the engagement party, and Felicity had come over to see Elizabeth in her new pink gown. "Did your parents truly want you to go to England?" Elizabeth spoke slowly. It seems so," she said. "They say that will be advantageous for me, and I will be safer there." "Oh," exclaimed Felicity in exasperation. "Safer? 'Tis so unfair when grown-ups disagree to ruin everything for their children. We did not start the fight between loyalists and patriots, but we have to suffer for it. I will be miserable if you go to England, and you will be too." "I," agreed Elizabeth wholeheartedly, "especially because I will be under Miss Pris's thumb." "Why does she want you to go?" asked Felicity. "So she can have someone else to bully?" said Elizabeth. "You can't go with her," said Felicity wildly. "You must run away. Or perhaps you could paint dots on yourself and pretend you have the pox. That would scare her. Or you secretly practice rowing between now and the wedding, and then when you are on a ship to England, you could steal a smaller boat, jump overboard it, and have a short. Or you and I both cut off all our hair and dress as boys and run off to the western wilderness together. Or we could join up with pirates. Or..." "Felicity," Elizabeth interrupted gently, "your ideas are not very practical, I'm afraid. We must think carefully. We need a good plan, and we need it quickly. We don't have much time. At the party, Miss Priscilla is going to announce that I am going to England. Once her announcement is made in front of all my parents' friends, my parents change her mind about me before we can make the announcement. We got to convince her that she wants to take Annabelle to England, but not me. Felicity's face lit up with an idea. You would behave very strangely at the party tonight, she said. You could move and shrink and knock things over and run madly like a crack bait. Elizabeth giggled, but then she said, I'm afraid that would not change Miss Priscilla's mind. She has already seen Annabelle do all these things and more at breakfast over the last few days, and she's still taking her back to England. Oh, said Felicity. She smiled a little at the thought of what breakfast with Annabelle and Annabelle must have been like for the past few days. Elizabeth spoke thoughtfully. I think Miss Priscilla is pleased when we have behaved badly because it proves she's right, that everyone here in the colonies is uncivilized hothead. Elizabeth said. Felicity shook her head and frowned. We are not uncivilized, she said, and not one is hot-headed, except maybe Ben about being a patriot. Miss Priscilla's wrong. She's so sure she's right about that and everything else, and Miss Elizabeth, she enjoys fussing at Annabelle and me, telling us what we do not know the right way to act or speak or even how to dress properly, the way the aristocratic ladies do in England. Of course, she thinks that way she does, everything is perfect, and that way she dresses is the height of fashion. You should see the ridiculous wig she's going to wear tonight. She brought it with her all the way from the fancy of the party. She's very vain about it. The wig is as tall as I am. Come, I'll show you. Elizabeth and Felicity tiptoed up the steps and into the room where all the wigs were powdered. Look, said Elizabeth. She pointed to a wig that was so tall and so heavily dusted with white powder that it looked like one of the drifts of snow outside the window. Swoops and swirls of curls wrapped around the wig and hung around it from it with bunches of flowers and ribbons and bows peeking out from among the curls. Why, said Felicity, it looks so big and heavy. Her head will be awfully warm under the wig. Aye, joked Elizabeth. 'Tis Miss Pris who will be hot-headed tonight. The two friends giggled. Then Elizabeth looked at Felicity with a sparkle in her eyes and said, Perhaps we could fix the wig to help Miss Priscilla keep a cool head. How? Asked Felicity. Without another word, Elizabeth opened the window. She scooped a handful of snow off the windowsill and packed into a small hard snowball. Then she carefully wriggled her hands into the hair of the wig and hid the snowball in among white curls. Felicity caught on right away and made a few small snowballs to hide Mrs. Priscilla's wig too. Then Elizabeth put on the wig next to the window so that it would stay very cold until Miss Priscilla put it on. When they were finished, the two girls scampered back down the stairs and collapsed against one another with laughter. When the snowballs melt, they'll cool Miss Priscilla's head, said Elizabeth cheerfully. I think they'll also cool her feelings toward me when she finds out I'm the one responsible for them. Aye, laughed Felicity. They'll throw cold water onto her plans. And that's the end of that chapter. See you later.